I want to welcome everyone for joining us. We're going to give it a few minutes for everyone to actually log on and see the attendees. There's approximately 25, I believe, that will be joining us this evening. Just always welcome. So to gavel in our meeting, we actually have an extra helper this morning, geez, oh man, this evening to help us out. So I'm gonna ask Ayla to come up and help gavel us in here. That's yours. You get to gavel us in. So give me 3 real good taps. Thank you very much. And with that tap of the gavel, I would like to call the Seneca Valley School District School Board Action Meeting of April 19th, 2021 to order. At this time, I'd ask everyone to join me in a moment of silence in memory of the lives lost due to COVID-19 and in reflection of those who are mourning loved ones, recovering from illness, or have been negatively impacted during this time. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask Ms. Andresi to take over.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. You briefly met our I Led the Pledge student, but let's welcome her again to the microphone. I'd like to introduce to you Ayla Shore. She's a second grader at Connequenessing Valley Elementary. So Ayla is the daughter of Jason and Lauren Shore of Zelienople. You actually may recognize Mr. Shore. He is also an art teacher right here in the intermediate high school. So welcome. Ayla is also joined by her little sister, Raylyn, who will be joining us as a kindergarten student next school year at CVE. Hi, Raylyn. Thank you for being here. Ayla was nominated this evening by CVE School Administration. In fact, I would like to welcome and thank Mrs. Deanne Graham, principal of CVE, for the nomination and for being here tonight in support of Ayla. I would also like to thank Ms. Billy Jo Peffer, her second grade teacher, for also joining us here tonight in support of Ayla. So Ayla, before we begin to this evening, I just wanted to share a few things about you with our school board so they could get to know you a little better. You can tell me if any of this has changed or if I have it wrong, but I understand your favorite classes in school are art and science, and that when you grow up, you would like to be why don't you tell everybody what you want to be when you grow up?
Fashion designer.
Fashion designer. She's sporting a spring dress this evening. I also understand you currently enjoy spending time working on your rainbow loom set, and you especially like to make bracelets and charms for all of your friends and family. And that you are a player with the SV North Soccer Association.
Yeah.
She loves to show kindness to others and is very excited, she tells me, to be back in person 5 days a week at school. Can you tell everybody what you miss the most about school?
I missed being able to be with all my friends.
Excellent. Well, we're glad you're here this evening with all of us. At this time, we're going to say the pledge. So if all of you could please stand, and anyone at home would like to join us and is able to stand, we are going to say the pledge. Ayla, when you are ready, go ahead and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Earlier this evening, we presented Ayla with her medal and her I Led the Pledge t-shirt and lots of goodies in her Seneca swag bag. So again, thank you for being here this evening and doing a wonderful job. I know that she's been promised ice cream, so if they run from the building, you know why. So feel free to go ahead and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much. Great job again, Ayla.
Thank you very much. We'll take our roll call. So Ms. Meslonsky, please.
Ms. Bradel? Here. Mr. DiTullio?
Here.
Ms. Harrison? Here. Mr. Hester?
Here.
Mr. Jacobs?
Here.
Mr. Nickel?
Present.
Mr. Peterson?
Here.
Mr. Whittle? I'm sorry, Ms. Whittle?
Here.
And Mr. Widowson?
Here. Thank you very much. Great to have everybody in the same place again. Hopefully this will become the norm. So, Ms. Andrade.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have 3 student staff recognition items this evening. The first one is from the Midwestern Intermediate Unit 4. Our early intervention classroom at Rowan Elementary School was recently chosen by the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network, otherwise known as PTAN, Autism Initiative, to present at this year's National Autism Conference scheduled virtually for later this summer. This team consists of Lainey Cullinan, EI school psychologist, Carly Weaver, EI teacher, Chelsea SK, speech and language therapist, Deb Eshelman, occupational therapist, and paraprofessionals Mary Beth Winters and Kathy Bittner. The team will discuss the individualized approach to assessment, program selection, instructional practices, staff training, and implementation fidelity. The Patan Autism Initiative shared that they are very excited to have the opportunity to highlight MIU for EI efforts and success, providing students with high-quality early intervention. Our second item, 2 Seneca Valley students recently earned awards at the 82nd Annual Pittsburgh Regional Science and Engineering Fair held virtually March 24th through the 25th. Freshman Shivani Umesh won a sponsor award from Young Women in Biology for her investigation on the effect that diet has on coronavirus infections globally by conducting a meta-analysis of accumulated data. Junior Nick Nedzeski brought home 2 sponsor awards from the Spectroscopy Society of Pittsburgh and the Allegheny Medical Society, as well as a scholarship award from Penn State University for his work investigating the role that glycerol has on biofilm formation. Mr. Nedzeski conducted his lengthy experiment in the SV Biotechnology Research Lab, both in person and virtually as the year progressed. And each year, approximately 1,000 students from more than 100 schools are selected to participate in PRSEF. We congratulate both of those students for an outstanding job. Our third item, Seneca Valley Juniors Sydney Thompson and Nick Nedzeski were both awarded an honorable mention in the Society for Analytical Chemists of Pittsburgh High School Essay Contest. 13 students were awarded prizes, including Ms. Thompson and Mr. Nedzeski. Their recognition also included a $100 prize. Each year, SACP hosts an essay contest that requires students to respond to a science-related prompt dealing with current events. Schools in the greater Pittsburgh area, including 39 Pennsylvania counties, 10 Ohio counties, and 25 West Virginia counties participated. Again, we congratulate those students for an outstanding job. And under dates to remember, this Thursday, April 22nd is Earth Day. And then we will return here on May 3rd for a work session school board meeting that begins at 7 p.m. And that's all I have, Mr. President, unless, of course, you have questions.
Are there any questions for Ms. Andrade? Hearing and seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
In your backup, you will notice that you have the financial reports for the operations, senior high activities, intermediate high activities, athletics, food services, tax collection reports, and capital projects funds. And I'm sure that if you had any questions, you already took those up with Ms. Bertner. So we will move on, and there's no other questions on those. We'll move on to the COVID-19 update from Dr. Vitale.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I have a very brief update this evening. I gave a very detailed update last week, but I do want to remind the board, and our staff also knows, that Butler County is back in the moderate level of COVID transmission as defined by the Pennsylvania Department of Education, with a PCR rate of 7.6% and an incident rate of 97.4. We have to meet both of those thresholds to go back to moderate. We did. The PCR rate needs to be less than 10%, and the incident rate needs to be less than 100%. So we were close on the incident rate, but we made it. As a reminder, we need 2 consecutive weeks of moderate transmission to come off of the restrictions of the attestation form. Also on our COVID-19 tracking page that Nurse Williams does for us on our website, we currently have 13 active student cases across the district, and we have 1 staff case. I will tell you, since the entire school district, all the adults in this school district, as a matter of fact, in every school district in the state of Pennsylvania, were offered vaccines in late March, early April, we have seen a significant reduction in our staff cases. And that is pretty impressive. As a matter of fact, we have not yet seen someone who has gotten a vaccine, who has gotten COVID. So that's good news. We know the vaccines are not 100%, but we are certainly we're seeing the adult numbers go down significantly since the vaccines were offered to educational personnel. Unfortunately, the student cases did come up over the last several weeks. Today, we are sitting on 13, but remember, that's because we clear the dashboard towards the cases that count for closures. That gets cleared on Sundays after the weekend. Now, the active student cases we have listed, I gave you the district amount, that is on a 14-day average. But then you'll see in every building, we have active cases counting towards the temporary closure. So that will start to creep up again. And last Friday, we were very close at Ryan Gloyer Middle School in closing. So, I want to make sure that people understand the closure chart is not a recommendation when you have 2 weeks of substantial. So we are still under that closure chart, and it's not a recommendation for this week. If we have another week of moderate, then it becomes a recommendation. If we go back to substantial, if we have another week of substantial, we are still on that attestation form until we have 2 consecutive weeks of moderate. So that is something that we're closely monitoring. Our teachers are doing a great job. All of our personnel, custodians, teacher aides, cafeteria bus, everyone, just really fantastic job. Everyone took the vaccine seriously. A large portion of people did accept the J&J vaccine. And that was, of course, before it was put on pause. We will know more information about the J&J vaccine. We're supposed to hear Friday, maybe even Saturday, from the federal government, from the FDA and the CDC. So we're closely monitoring that, but I am pleased to say that overall, while our staff and our employees did have side effects, for the most part, nothing serious, and we're very pleased about that. So that is my COVID update, unless the board has questions.
Any questions for Dr. Vitale? Thank you, Dr. Vitale. Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on. So we are now at the public comment portion, and we do have one speaker signed up. That's Mr. Tom Nesbitt. He is representing the Zelienople Historical Society, and he'd like to talk about the Seneca Valley naming. He lists his address as 210 West Beaver Street in Zelienople, and that would make Mr. Jacobs his representative. Mr. Nesbitt, welcome.
Okay, thank you. I just want 2 or 3 minutes of your time.
That's all we'll
I
get.
thought I'd give you some historical perspective on the naming of the Seneca Valley High School and the sports teams, et cetera. I write the newsletter for the Zelienople Historical Society. I also wrote this pictorial history of Zelienople, this book, and I've done extensive historical research in the past 30 years in Western Pennsylvania. And by coincidence, I happen to be one of the students who in 1964 voted on the name for Seneca Valley High School and the team name and colors. The way that worked was Zelienople High School juniors and seniors and Evans City High School juniors and seniors were given paper ballots with various choices. So for the team colors, we picked like light blue and black over the chagrin of the football coach who didn't like that idea, but we picked it. And then we picked the Raiders name, even though we wanted Indians, but I think North Hills is the Indians. And the reason we wanted Indians was the teachers committee told us that Indians used to live here, right in this immediate area. So we picked Raiders instead. And it turns out, 50 years later, through a lot of research by a lot of people, there was definitely Indian villages on the north side of the Connequenessing Creek. And none other than George Washington came through here on his first public mission, and he stayed in the Indian village. It was either across from Harmony on the north bank, Hartman's Golf Course, which is on the north bank, or maybe even somewhere in this area. And it's never been proven where this Indian village was, but it's certainly historically significant. So we're glad we picked the Seneca name, and how that worked, which was interesting, was Evans City voted for Valley High, Zelienople voted for Seneca High. It was split 50-50. So my best friend, who was president of the student council, said to the teachers committee, let's use both names. Let's call it Seneca Valley High School. That's how we got our name. It was a suggestion of one student. It's been that way ever since. So as someone who voted on these names, I'd like to see them remain the same. I know there's been some discussion about changing some names, but I think from a historical perspective, it'd be nice to keep them. So, any questions or anything on that?
Dr. Vitale?
I don't normally address speakers, but I want to thank you. I
Oh,
want to thank you for number one, coming here in a respectful manner, because children watch us and children listen.
okay.
And for some reason, adults have lost some of that. And I'm not broadly speaking, certainly the people I work with here are very respectful people, but for some reason, children are learning from adults that we can be rude and we can be disparaging, and that's okay. And you come to us in such a respectful, humble manner. I just want to thank you for that.
No,
And thank you for the history. And I'd also like to either borrow your book or at least take a picture of it so I can get a copy possibly on my own, please.
Okay, if you search the internet, you'll find a picture of the cover. But the book is for sale at the Zionopol Historical Society. And we're there every morning, like 9 to noon. And it's just a nice book. It has like 200 historical photographs of Zionopol. And another author wrote the one for Harmony. I don't know about Evans City, but there's one for Cranberry too. So there's a lot of history here in our local area, including, by the way, that this campus used to be my great-grandfather Nesbitt's family farm. All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. We will move on our meeting, and at this point, I would look for a motion to approve the following. Excuse me while I get my computer the right spot. To approve the minutes of our work session of March 1st and our regular meeting of March 8th, which was provided in your backup. The treasurer's report, which is in your backup. The general fund bills in the amount of $4,395,095.63. The construction fund bills in the amount of $2,300,958.22, and those are all in your backup as well. Could I get a motion, please? Thank you, Ms. Whittle. Is there a second?
Second.
That was Mr. Hester. I'm getting better at hearing names and recognizing them. Any discussion on any of these issues? Hearing none. If you call the roll, please, Lisa.
Ms. Whittle,
Yes.
Mr. Nichol,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Ms. Bradel,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Widowson,
Yes.
Mr. Hester,
Yes.
Mr. DiTullio.
Yes.
Motion carries with 9 in the affirmative.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to administration action. I'll turn it over to Mr. Nichol.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize. The voice is struggling a little bit. We'll see how well this goes. But I would like to make a motion for the following administration action items. First is for the Adelphi Education Agreement to approve the agreement with Adelphi Education, Inc. to provide alternative education services for the 2021-2022 school year. The detail on that agreement is in backup. Second, our Kennywood Picnic to approve June 25th as our Kennywood Picnic Day for 2021. Contract is in your backup. To approve the following board policies. All of them are detailed in your backup. The first is policy 917.1, weapons, new, which is a new policy, second and final reading. Policy 252, dating violence, also a new policy, second and final reading. Public attendance at school events, which is policy 904. It's a revision. It is its first reading. Policy 911, broadcasting of school events, a revision, first reading. Policy 203, communicable diseases and immunization, also revision. It's our first reading of this policy. And finally, policy 822, automated external defibrillator. It is a policy revision. It is in its first reading. The next item would be to name the new K-6 school in Cranberry Township as Airman Crest. And finally, a settlement agreement to approve the settlement agreement and release the settlement of the due process complaint filed with the Office of Dispute Resolution at case number 24452-20-21KE. That agreement is provided in your backup.
Thank you for the motion, Mr. Nichol. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Any discussion on any of these issues? Just like to make the comment, Airman Crest, we get to keep the ECE. It's going to be wonderful.
Yep.
Another question? Oh, Mr. Peterson?
When the infectious disease policy was first brought to us several months ago, I raised some questions. I won't say objections, some questions. And I'd just like to thank the administration for going back and doing some work on that and presenting the version that we see now, which I find very acceptable. Thank you for those changes.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Any others? Hearing none. Lisa, if you call the roll, please.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Widdowson,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Nichol,
Yes.
Mr. Hester,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes,
Ms. Whittle,
Yes.
Ms. Bradel,
Yes.
and Mr. DiTullio.
Yes.
Motion carries with 9 in the affirmative.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to instruction action. We'll go to Ms. Harrison, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Going to make a motion to approve the following instruction action items. First is the transition services agreement. Approve the transition services agreement between the Seneca Valley School District and CARES of Western Pennsylvania to provide services for one student per Mr. Miller and provided in the backup. Second is memorandum of understanding. Approve the memorandum of understanding with the Education Support Professionals Association to allow adjusted work schedules during the instructional recess of the summer of 2021 as provided in the backup. Third is the grant disbursements. Grant permission to apply for and disperse of approve the following grants. The first is Walmart Local Community Grant in the amount of $5,000 for professional development of CVE staff utilizing the Leader in Me's 7 Habits of Happy Kids platform. The program promotes a positive school environment by integrating leadership and the whole child approach into every function of the school. Continued training in this program will give CVE a path to the goal of increasing student achievement by providing students with a safe and positive environment for growth. Students who are versed in the Leader in Me will develop a skill set to overcome personal circumstances while also understanding the importance of interpersonal relationships and respecting others' wants and needs. Requested by Ms. Deanne Graham, Dr. Tina Francis, and Ms. Annie Mersing, and provided in the backup. Second is the Arconic Foundation grant in the amount of $25,000 to host a Raider Robotics Rally in the summer of 2022, which will allow the SV First team, first standing for inspiration and recognition of science and technology, and SWEET, standing for Seneca's Women Engineering Exploration Team, to lead the community on an exciting adventure with hands-on activities, an introduction to Java programming, and a first-hand look into the worlds of the first LEGO League and first Tech Challenge team, requested by Mr. Steve Fortunato and Ms. Annie Mersing, and provided in the backup. Third grant would be the Highmark Foundation School Grant in the amount of $7,500 for Leader in Me, LIM Core 1 training for the staff of Conecuanessing Valley Elementary School is provided in the backup. Then we go to conferences, approved conference requests as discussed in the backup. And last would be the senior high school book donation or disposal, approved donation or disposal of books from the senior high school is provided in the backup.
Thank you for the motion, Ms. Harrison. Is there a second, please?
Second.
That was Mr. Widdowson, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion on any of these issues? Hearing and seeing none. Lisa, call the roll, please.
Mr. Nichol,
Yes.
Mr. Hester,
Yes.
Mr. Widdowson,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
yes,
Ms. Whittle,
Yes.
Ms. Bradel,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
and Mr. DiTullio.
Yes.
Motion carries with 9 in the affirmative.
Thank you very much. We will move on to business and finance action. Mr. Jacobs, please.
Thank you. I'll make a motion for the following business finance actions, all of which are included in the backup. First is the budget transfers, to approve the budget transfers. Second is the change order, approve the construction change order for the new K-6 elementary school at Erman Road. The third is early intervention agreement, approve the renewal agreement with the Midwestern Intermediate Unit 4 for an early intervention classroom housed at Rowan Elementary for the 2021-22 school year. Next item are bid awards. Award the following bids for the 2021-22 school year. Copier paper supplies, general supplies, maintenance supplies, and print supplies. The next item is the Josh Ship presentation agreement. Approve the speaker's agreement for Josh Ship to present at Seneca Valley on October 20th, 2021. The event will focus on the key role that parents and adults play in the future success of children. The cost will be shared with the Butler Early Learning Council and Butler Area School District. The last item is the Pennsylvania School Board Association Policy Maintenance Program Participation Agreement. Approve the 2021-22 PSBA Policy Maintenance Program Participation Agreement.
Thank you for the motion, Mr. Jacobs. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Any discussions? Hearing none. Lisa, if you call the roll, please.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Ms. Bradel,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Hester,
Yes.
Ms. Whittle,
Yes.
Mr. Nickel,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Widowson,
Yes.
Mr. DiTullio.
Yes.
Motion carries with 9 in the affirmative.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to personnel. Mr. Whittison, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, under the personnel, I'd like to make a motion to approve the appointments, leaves, and retirements as provided to the board and backup and having been discussed in executive session earlier.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Whittle. Since we discussed these in executive, we'll just move to a roll call, Lisa, please.
Mr. Hester,
Yes.
Ms. Whittle,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Widowson,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs,
Yes.
Ms. Bradel,
Yes.
Mr. Nickel,
Yes.
Mr. DiTullio.
Yes.
Motion carries with 9 in the affirmative.
Thank you very much. We are in receipt of, I believe it's 17 pieces of communication that we've all received and hopefully have had a chance to review. And I would look for any other item to be brought before the board. Hearing and seeing none, I'd look for a motion to adjourn our meeting. Thank you, Mr. Widowson. Is there a second? Thank you. Was that Ms. Harrison? Thank you very much. All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.